We're getting ready here to install a Zamp Solar power panel, and one of the first things we want to do here is turn off the battery power, and that's that switch right up here, because we don't want any DC power floating around in the wiring harness while we're working on it. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to install some light so that we can see what we're doing in that closet that's up over the refrigerator. There is no light in that box, and this is where we're going to be working. And as you can see on the left here, there's a panel, and that's the panel we're taking out to get started. To make this job easier, we're going to remove this door panel on the top. You cannot get these panels out because of those hinges, so by taking the panel off, we'll be able to just flip these panels out of here and get at the wiring behind them. Alright, the next thing that I did, I got the panel off, but Winnebago leaves a lot of wiring just floating around up in here, so I'd suggest you get some cable ties and bundle some of these wires up like this so they're not floating around so badly. And I have at least 3 bundles here that I've created, put aside. It just makes it easier for you. The other thing is, you can see these 2 cables here. These are the ones that are intended, that are pre-wired in the coach, that are intended to connect to the solar panel and to the solar charger. There's a yellow and a white wire here, and both of those go down into the power compartment in case you had an external solar panel you wanted to hook up. These other 2 wires here with the tape on the tabs are the ones that go down to the battery from the solar charger. You'll notice that they've got electrical tape wrapped around them. I don't know if they're hot yet or not. I'm going to check that before I take that tape off. Even though I have the coach power turned off, these would go straight to the battery. And in case these shorted out, we could make a lot of smoke and maybe burn up some wiring. So we're not going to take that tape off and do anything with that until we know whether they're hot or not. So that's it for this section. Okay, the next thing I've done is I've removed that panel up there that I mentioned before. And the hole on the left would be the top of the panel, and that's where the tank gauges and the pump buttons and things like that were located. And I had to add the hole below for the charging unit. That hole below is 5 inches wide by 4 inches deep, and I located that about 1.5 inches below the upper hole. And the reason I did that is that down on the bottom area down in here is a big lip in the cabinet, and you wouldn't be able to get at the buttons on the charger. So this leaves a little bit of panel between the 2 instruments there, and this is obviously narrower hole than that one, so we have no problem there. So that's what I've done for that. I did that by drilling 4 holes in the corner with about a 1/4 inch drill, and then using a saw of some type, whether it's a jigsaw or some kind of coping saw, to cut the hole out. But it's that simple. It only took about 15-20 minutes to do it. Okay, I have reinstalled the panel. The holes drilled out for the bottom. And I have pulled out the bundles of wires that I need. This one here is for the tank gauge and stuff. As you can see, I've pulled that out. I had to do that so I get the panel in and out. And I also have the wires and cables down here that go to the charging panel. And so all we need to do now is hook these wires up to the charging panel down here, and just put the tank gauge and stuff back up in here. There's 4 screws on the corners to put back in. And that'll be it for this section. Those solar panel wires that are down here actually go out behind the cabinet, and they travel down to the other side of the cabinet area up near the roof. And the next big trick will be to locate a hole up there that we can come through the roof and pick those wires up. We do have dimensions, but we'll see how well Winnebago did on providing those. Alright, we have put the one place water control stuff and the battery level panel back in place, And we've got all these cables coming out of this other hole that we made, and we have hooked them up to the back of the solar charger. And if you look carefully, you'll see that there are 2 wires on the top. The green one on the very top has a gold band, and the black one also has a gold band. And that's the right order to put these on according to the Winnebago's document. So the green one's on the top with the gold band, the black one with the gold band is second. The third wire down is a green one again with another white wire. The white wire is the one that goes down to the power compartment if you have another panel. And then there's a black wire on the bottom. We may bend these tabs towards us a little bit as we push this panel back in and secure it in place, just to make the wiring go back into the hole a lot easier. But that's going to be the final step, putting this together, is to put this panel back up here. Well, as you can see, I have pulled the panel on the right side of the cabinet, and as I'm looking in there, I can see up in the top a hole that goes up through the roof, and lo and behold, right here are the 2 cables that need to go to the solar panel 3-port thing. So now all we have to do is go in here and decide where we want to put a hole through the roof, and bore a hole straight up through, and push the cables up through there and put in that 3-port solar panel. Okay, this kind of ends the installation down here. The instruments are in the panel, and I did check the battery leads coming up here to see if they were hot or not, because they were taped on the end, but I couldn't detect any voltage on them, so they may be disconnected from the batteries down below somewhere, and I'll have to find that later. And so now, the only other comment is some of that black tape comes off in high temperatures if you store your coach in Florida, and it leaves all this black residue on your arms and hands when you're playing with the wires, and you'll probably get it all over the sides of the cabinet and stuff. And mineral spirits cleans it off really well. You won't have to, it won't hurt the paint or anything like that. So we're on to the next step, which is going to be up on the roof. Okay, what you see in front of you now is the hole. I've bored out a 1-inch hole. I had drilled a pilot hole from inside the cabinet up through the area where the foam had a hole up through the roof. So I ran a drill up that hole out through the roof to locate where the hole on the roof should be. And then I came on top of the roof and drilled about an inch and a quarter hole up here and pulled the green and black wires out through the hole. And now I've hooked them up over here to the 3-port solar panel, and the green one's the ground wires that connects to the black stud, and the black one is the hot lead, and that's a circuit breaker, self-resetting circuit breaker there, and so that goes onto the middle stud. And the next thing I'm going to do after this is I'm going to flip this thing over and make it comfortable on the roof with the wires going down through the hole, and then I'm going to take a magic marker and draw around the edge of it to locate the thing on the roof. And then after that I will drill 8 pilot holes, put the sealant on the bottom of the this panel, stick it on the roof, and put the 8 screws in it to secure it to the roof. And that should be it. And after I'm done with the screws and this thing is mounted, then I'll take some more of that sealant and go over the tops of the screws too, so the water can't get down through the screws. Now, as you can see, I bent the lugs a little bit so the wires are pointing down, and then I positioned the panel on the roof so that it fit comfortable over the hole. And I took a marker and went around the outside of the thing so I know where to spread the sealant with the caulking gun, and where the holes, I'll drill a pilot hole for the screws to go in. They're self-starting screws, so I won't have to drill a big hole. Alright, we have drawn an outline of where the panel fits best, and I've drilled small pilot holes for each of these self-tapping screws, and I've also put down some sealant there. And the next step is to put the panel on, put the screws in. Alright, I have put the 3-port solar panel in place, set it on top of that ceiling stuff I had, and I've put all the screws in around it, and I've covered the screws afterwards with that same sealing compound. And so this part is done. The next part will be to mount the solar panel. Alright, we're on the roof now. You can see that we got the 3-port solar connector mounted. And I've got a piece of cardboard over the solar panel. This keeps it from making electricity while we're working on it, because it'll make it no matter what. And I located the solar panel on a spot that was a pretty flat spot. And then I went around to each one of these legs and loosened them up slightly just to get them to lay flatter on the roof. Just loosening that up, and you can tip them a little bit so they lay flatter. And then I marked where each pad was, and then I drilled pilot holes for the screws, and I did that in all 4 spots. And I put some of that sealant around the screw holes and put the screws in. Now, most of the screws went in pretty tight, tightened up good. A couple of them didn't tighten up real well. So just to be sure that nothing bad happens, I'm going to go around and caulk all around the edges of these clamps so that the adhesive will help hold the panel to the roof also. I've also left the power cord disconnected for the solar panel until I have the battery hooked up. And after the battery's hooked up, then I'll come back, hook up that cord, and I'll take the piece of cardboard off the solar panel. Alright, this is one of the last steps. I've plugged the solar panel into the 3-port connector, and I saw the charger come up and it had a 601 error. And what that tells me is that the battery is disconnected. So I went back to Winnebago and come to find out that there's supposed to be a circuit breaker in here. It's underneath the passenger seat. You have to remove the passenger seat. And the cable that comes with the kit, that little circuit breaker that's on the cable actually fits those holes where the circuit breaker is supposed to be on this panel in here. So I'm going to take and mount that circuit breaker that was with the kit onto the panel, and then the wire, if you can see the end of that wire right there, that's the one that's supposed to be coming from the solar panel. So I'll be connecting that to the circuit breaker, and then I'll have to make up a short section of wire from the cables that came with the kit to connect to the disconnect relay. So that's the next step. And after you're all done, everything is hooked up, you should be able to come back to this panel and see that it's actually charging your chassis batteries.